Ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages. If you follow basketball, you know Chilltown Hoops.
So this is really good right here. Yo. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls all over the world. Y'all know what time it is when y'all see me. It is Chilltown Hoops. We do this weeknights on the Chilltown Hoops Network. We talk pro basketball here, the good, the bad, and different. So what's going on? I know what it is. So tonight, I got a question. And I had a conversation not too long ago, and I thought it was real interesting. All right. I thought it was really interesting when we had this conversation. And what I broke down was I broke down the 5 positions: the point, the shooting guard, the swing, the power, and the 5-man, right? And of those positions, right? Excuse me. And of those positions, I took the top 5 guys who I think are at those positions, right? Of those 5 guys, of those 5 positions, I took the top 5 guys at those positions. And of the top 5, I had to ask myself, what's the gap between 1 and 2 in each of these positions, and where is the biggest gap? Like, who has the biggest gap? Is it the point guard? Well, ask yourself, who are the top 5 point guards in your estimation of all time? I think it's Magic, Curry, Isaiah, Stockton, Oscar Robertson. Those are the 5 best point guards, I think, in NBA history. I think there's a gap between Magic and Curry. And not only do I think that there's a gap between Magic and Curry, there's going to come a time, right? I feel like there's going to come a time when we're going to have a conversation. Like, I want to sit down with you guys and I want to have a serious conversation about Curry and Magic. Like, I want to have a basketball conversation about Curry and Magic. I know what the accolades are. Magic got more league MVPs. Magic got more championships. Magic got more finals MVPs. Magic got more first team All-Pros. Okay, I get all of that part. But I want to sit down and I want to have a genuine conversation about Magic and Curry. And I want to talk about these 2 guys as players, as point guards, and discuss exactly what the difference is between them. Because, to be honest with you, I feel like I'm getting nowhere when I talk to not younger people, but people that are subjective about Curry, and they don't have any. I think that there's people that are subjective about Curry, and they're completely biased. We're all biased on some level, but they're completely biased in their stance. At the 2 guard spot, I'm in the minority. I think there's a gap between Jordan and Bryant. I hate people telling me all the time, Bryant was the closest thing to Jordan. No, I just don't think so. I don't. I don't think he was the athlete. I think that he was awesome, and I'm not going to argue that on any level. I think that he was awesome. I don't think that he was the athlete that Jay was. I don't think he was the one-on-one player that Jay was. I don't think he was the bucket getter that Jay was. I just don't think so. That's just me. I remember him when he had hair, and they used to call him Air Jordan. I remember how awesome that guy was. And I think that there's a significant gap between him and Bryant. That's me. Where it gets a little trickier is, right? What up, Leak? Where it gets a little trickier is when we get to spots like the small forward. And here's what here's what I'm thinking, right? I've always stood on this logic. You could be a better player than player B. Player A could be a better player than player B, but player B could be better at his position than player A. For example, I think Steph Curry is a better player than John Stockton. I think John Stockton is a better point guard than Steph Curry. I think he does more things more effectively at the lead guard spot than Steph Curry. I think Steph Curry is better overall as a basketball player than John Stockton. Now, some people might hear that and think that I'm crazy. I think the same thing when it comes to John Havlicek and Scottie Pippen. I think John Havlicek is better than Scottie Pippen. I think Scottie Pippen was a better small forward than John Havlicek. I think those two things aren't the same. And I feel like when I get into these conversations, it's just better at basketball. Okay, you could be more skilled than one guy at handling the basketball, right? I feel like you could be more skilled than the guy handling the basketball. I think you could be more polished of a passer. I think you could be more refined as a scorer. I think that you could be more stable as a rebounder. I think that you could be more. I think that you could be more tactical. I think that you could be more hands-on as a defender. I think that you can be those things. However, when I think about you and I think about this other player in terms of their position, right? When I think about you and I think of this other player at their position, I just see positions different. I hear all the time about how, we live in a positionless basketball era. I never bought into that logic. And the reason why I never bought into that logic is because we're not just 5 players on the floor and we're just playing basketball. No, each of us have a specific job. Now, you might be skilled in what I do. I might be skilled in what you do. And I may be even able to help you at what you do, just like you're able to help me at what I do. So if I'm a point guard, you being a big, you might be able to help me with ball handling. Jamal Murray and Joker are a prime example of that. The offense runs through Joker. Jamal Murray is the primary ball handler, right? Jamal Murray is the primary ball handler, but the offense runs through Joker. With the offense running through Joker, he helps Jamal Murray with some of the ball handling responsibilities. However, Joker is still a 5-man. And as a 5-man, what exactly is my job? What does my job entail? I gotta get on the glass, right? Not only do I have to get on the glass, but I gotta defend the paint. That's part of my job as a 5-man. This is what goes into, right? This is what goes into being a 5-man. Now, yes, I'm able to handle the ball. Yes, I'm able to knock down the long ball. Yes, I'm able to play in the mid-range. But I'm also able to take advantages of mismatches, or I'm able to take advantage of my matchup on the box. This is what I'm talking about when I talk about positions. I never bought into, right? I never bought into the logic of being positionless. I never bought into that, and I never will. So the 3 spot, is where it gets a little trickier for some people. Because at the 2 spot, I got Jordan, Bryant, Wade, Drex, Harden. Those are the 5 guys. Between Jordan and Bryant, I feel like there's a gap. When we get to the small forward spot, I got James, I got Bird, KD, Doc, Scottie Pippen. There's a gap between James and Bird, right? I feel like there's a gap between James and Bird. And this goes back to my original logic that I feel like if you, and I didn't say that Clyde was better than Bryant. I never said that. Never said that Drex was better than Bryant. You never heard me say that. But anyway, when I think about the difference between a player and a position. So I think LeBron James and Larry Bird are closer at the small forward position than they are as overall players. Because Bird did things at the small forward position that's necessary for you to be awesome. Right? That's the I think that's the difference. Bird was a double-digit rebounder. Right? Bird was a double-digit rebounder. Not only is Bird a double-digit rebounder, I don't listen to like dudes like this. Curry clears Kobe. I don't listen to dudes who sit behind the keyboard. Nah, if you can't come up here and defend your logic, I'm not interested in anything that you have to say. I'm not. Like to say, here's why Curry is better than Kobe. Shaq was the gravity that Kobe benefited from. KD benefited from Curry's gravity. And Curry benefited from KD's gravity. That's not a one-way street. That's a two-way street. Just like Curry benefited, just like KD benefited from Curry's gravity, Curry benefited from KD's gravity. Curry benefited from Klay Thompson's gravity. Klay Thompson wasn't just getting wide open looks because everybody was just focused in on Steph Curry. No, that's not the way that worked. There's people who think Klay Thompson is one of the best shooters, one of the 5 best shooters ever. Like this right here, like Curry is the most double team player ever. No, he isn't. That's just not true. And I'm not here to do that with you. I'm not. See, this is the kind of stuff where I feel like we have to have a real conversation. Like I want to sit down and I want to have a real conversation. I want to have and see what I mean, L? Like factually, that's just not true. It's just not. Curry is the most double team player ever. Like, how old are you to even say something like that? Curry is the most double team player ever. That's just not true. But anyway, when I said about players as opposed to positions, I think the position of small forward, I think it's closer, right? I think it's closer between, I think it's closer between both. So this is what I'm going to do, Curry Clears. If you're willing to debate me, I'm going to drop the link. And when I drop the link, come through and let's talk about it. How about that? If you want to have this debate, I 100% will do it with you. I'm going to drop the link in a little bit when I finish my rendition about the positions. I'm going to drop the link, and I'm 100% willing to have this debate with you. Absolutely, I will. If you will come up here, if you will come up here, I'm 100% willing to have this debate with you. Anyway, I feel like I said, with the player as opposed to the position, I feel like Bird is closer to James as a small forward than he is as a player. Those two things are not the same, right? I don't think that those two things are the same at all. I think that Larry Bird embodied what the small forward was: the playmaker, the rebounder, the distributor, the bucket getter, the all-around player that the small forward was. I don't think that he was a better player. I don't think he was a better player than James. I do think that there's a significant gap between both James and Bird as players. But when we talk about the small forward position, I think the gap closes a little bit. And the reason why I feel like the gap closes a little bit, because I think about what exactly Bird did at the small forward spot at 6'9", at 6'10", to revolutionize that spot, right? Because Bird was not a small Bird. Even though Bird played the small forward, he wasn't small. He was a bit of 6'9", right? So Bird as a rebounder, Bird as a playmaker. And you guys know how I feel about playmaking. I don't think playmaking is just on one side of the basketball. I think playmaking is on both sides of the ball. Right? I don't think that playmaking is just getting downhill and passing the ball. I don't think that playmaking is just assists. No, I think that there's a number of different ways that you can make plays on the defensive side of the ball, even when you have the ball getting to the rim. Those are things, right? Those are things that embody playmaking. And I think Bird was so good at playmaking and freeing up other guys, not just freeing up other guys, seeing the game one play, two plays ahead of what the game was. which is what made him so good, right? What I feel like that made him so good, right? So, with that being said, right? With that being said, I still think that there's a gap between James and Bird. I don't think that the gap is as I think that the gap is a little bit smaller when it comes to these guys as small forwards. As players, I think that the gap is a lot bigger. I think that James is a much better player than Larry Bird. Those two things are not the same thing. When we get to the power forward spot, right? When we get to the power forward spot, I think it's completely different. Well, I literally had this conversation. Today is Monday. We had this conversation, I want to say on Friday. And there are people who, and I don't agree with this. There are some people that think that if KG would have got on that San Antonio team at 18, 19 years old, he could have basically done the same thing that Tim Duncan did. I don't agree with that. I think that Duncan, when he got to the NBA, was way more polished than what KG was. Don't get me wrong. I think that KG was phenomenal as a jump shooter. I think KG was phenomenal as a defender. But I think that when Duncan showed up, from the minute he showed up, I mean, he was first team All-Pro as a rookie. I don't think that KG is playing at a top 5 level when he walks in the door of the NBA. At that, in 1995, if KG is 18 years old and he walks through the door, he's not playing at a top 5 level on that San Antonio team. He didn't play at a top 5 level on that Minnesota team. No, he did. He's not a top 5 player. With that being said, all right. With that being said, when I get to the 4 spot, I think that Duncan did so many things. My top 5 power forwards of all time, I got Duncan 1, Malone 2, KG 3, Dirk 4, Giannis 5, and I think Giannis and Barkley, I'm gonna give Giannis the edge. Right? I'm gonna give Giannis the edge. It was tough, but I'm gonna give Giannis the edge at this point. But the gap between Duncan and Malone, right? The gap between Duncan and Malone, I do think that it's significant. I 100% think it's significant. Retro, did you hear? Did you hear the top 5 guys that I just said? If you heard the top 5 guys that I just said, Retro, read them back to me. Say who I just said in terms of the top 5 guys, Retro. If you heard anything that I just said, I want to, because what I don't want to do is I don't want there to be any misunderstanding about what's going on here. Retro, again, if you heard what I just said, write back what I just said in terms of my top five power forwards of all time. If you can do that, I'm interested to hear if you listen to anything that I said. So anyway, I think that I think with Duncan and Malone, I think that Duncan's versatility and being able to move to the 4 spot. So what's your problem with Dirk? So why are you asking me about Dirk Nowitzki? If Dirk is already there, why are you asking me about Dirk Nowitzki? Can you explain that? As I was saying. So I think Duncan, when he showed up, first of all, Duncan played the 5 in college. When he was at Wake Forest, he played the 5. Just like Olajuwon played the 5 at Houston. And then when he got to Houston, Ralph Sampson was already there. So he moved over to the 4. Right? So it was Olajuwon and, right? It was Olajuwon and Ralph Sampson. Well, it was Duncan and it was Duncan and David Robinson. And I think that, right? And I think that with these, I think that with Duncan, I think that his ability, because he already played the 5 spot, so he was already well versed at the 4, because 4 men rebounded at that time. He was already well versed in dirty work, because that's what 4 men do. He was already well versed in shot blocking, running the floor, because this is what 4 men did. So because of that, right? Because of that, I think the transition to the 4 for Duncan wasn't an issue, which is also why the transition back to the top 5 wasn't an issue. When I want to say in I want to say in 2000 maybe 6, something like that, either 2006 or 2007, Duncan made the transition back to the 5. He was already doing that anyway because they had guys who played the 4 and the 5, right? So I just think that Duncan on the defensive end, when it comes to him and Malone, I think that he was much more versatile. I think that he was a more consistent rebounder. He was definitely a better rim protector. I think that he was more versatile on the box. I think Malone was really good on the box. Malone had that open pivot. Malone was better in transition. I think Malone had a better mid-range game. I won't argue that point. But I think Duncan can do it offensively in a number of different ways. I feel like Malone was a better passer than Duncan. But I feel like you could go to Duncan in different spaces. And with you being able to go to Duncan in different spaces on the offensive end, particularly on the box, and the way he draw double teams, I think it made for defenses to have a real difficult time with Duncan because he can play over double teams. I don't think Malone was as good in terms of scoring on the perimeter over double teams. Duncan was, because Duncan was 7 foot. Duncan was 7 foot tall. So, with that being said, I do think that there's a gap between Duncan and Malone. I think Duncan was better than Malone, and I'm a big time Karl Malone guy at the power forward spot. At the 5 spot, I'm in the minority. I think there's a gap between Chamberlain and Jabbar. I do. I think that there's a gap between these two guys, and I think that the gap is the longevity. I can appreciate how good, and anybody who knows me knows, I think Malone, I think Chamberlain's a top 5 player all time. Right. I think that I think that I don't think that there's when you're talking about the big man, I think that the 5 spot is the toughest spot of all these positions. The 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Right? The 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I think that the 5 spot is the toughest spot to crack of all of them. Right? Of all the positions, because what the 5-man did and how much better the 5-man was, right? Because the 5-man was so much better, and how much they ran the offense through him, and how much responsibility he had on defense and protecting the rim and rebounding. The 4-man was the dirty work guy, no doubt about that. But the 5-man, he was the last line of defense. He was your anchor. He was the guy who protected the rim. He was the guy who protected the paint. He was the guy who blocked shots. He was the guy who thwarted shots away. Right? He was the guy on offense where we ran the offense through him. With us running the offense through him, it's not a coincidence that the 5-man did everything that he did. Right? So with that being said, man, get your ass out of my chat. Get out of here. I ain't talking to you. Okay, get your ass out of my chat. Not you. Get the fuck out of here. Not you. Go fuck out of here. Do not come into my chat. Not you. Whole ass. You are not allowed in my chat. Hell no. Fuck out of here. Anyway, I just think that the 5-man, with everything, with everything that he did, he had the majority of the responsibility. Now, as we get older, and as the game evolved, the 5-man still has a lot of responsibility. You see what Joker has to do. See what Joel Embiid has to do. See what Anthony Davis had to do. You see what Rudy Gobert had to do on defense. You see what Wemby has to do on defense, right? You see what these guys have to do on defense. And with having to see what these guys have to do on defense and on offense, their responsibility becomes way more highlighted, right? Way more highlighted. So when I think about, I think about when I think about the top 5 positions, right? And with the top 5 positions, the power forward could very well be the biggest gap. I think that there's a significant gap between Curry and Magic, right? I think that there's a gap between Curry and Magic, and I won't. I'm definitely down to have a conversation about it. 100%. I think that there's a gap between Curry and Magic. I think that there's a gap between Jordan and Bryant. I think that that gap is actually. I think that that gap is a little bit bigger than Magic and Curry. I think that there's a gap between Magic and Curry, but I think that the gap between Jordan and Bryant is a little bit bigger. The gap at the power forward spot, right? The gap at the power forward spot. I think that there's a significant gap between Duncan and Malone, and I'm a Malone guy, but I think that there's a significant gap between both Malone and Duncan, and I think that there's a bigger gap than you guys talk about when it comes to Jabbar and Chamberlain. I think that there's a big gap between those two guys. And I think, and anybody that knows me knows, I think Chamberlain's a top 5 player all time. But I think that there's a gap between him and Jabbar. I think that there's a significant. I think Chamberlain was a better rebounder than Jabbar. I'm not going to argue that point. I 100% believe that he's a better rebounder. But overall, I do think that there's a significant gap between both Chamberlain and Jabbar. But I do want to hear from you guys. I do. So, which position has the biggest gap, and how big is the gap? I'm all ears. What up?
To me, it's a small forward position, and to me, it's not even close. I think the small forward has the biggest gap out of all the top two positions in NBA history.
So with James and Bird,
Yeah,
or James and KD,
yes.
why do you think that?
Just too many people think that Bird and LeBron is a legitimate conversation. We're done with that. I'm sorry. LeBron passed Bird in 2018. He passed him a long time ago. I don't know why we're having this conversation. And now some other on other dude's channel asking to debate about it, but he wouldn't drop the link, so I couldn't debate while LeBron
I
clearly
don't think
was
that
better.
I don't think the question is whether or not Bird or James passed Bird, even though that was 13 years after. I'm sorry, that was 15 years after James showed up. If he passed him in 2018, it took him 15 years to do it. But even if that's true, I don't think that that's the question of whether or not James is
No,
over Bird, because
no,
I think he.
people still think
Yeah,
Bird is better. I
no, I won't have that conversation because I don't think that he's better. The question that I have is, what is the gap between James and Bird at the small forward spot? I think James is a better player than Larry Bird. But when I think about what Larry Bird did at the small forward position and what the small forward position entailed, I think Bird was fantastic at that. And I think that gap is a little bit smaller than Bird and James overall as players.
but I
I
think
think
that
that's where
I
the gap
think
is.
but I think to your definition, like player and like position, LeBron is clearly, and I mean clearly, the better small forward. He has better handles. Can you agree with that?
I think he's nicer with the pill. I'll give you that. Yep.
He's a better passer.
Yes. Not much better, but I definitely think he's a better passer than Bird. But I
He's
don't think you give Bird enough credit. I don't think you give Bird enough credit for the passer that he is. Bird was fantastic as a distributor.
I watched Spur games and I'm not seeing the passes yet. Maybe if I watch some more, I'll see the
No, you don't.
pass.
No, I think that if you watch the games and you're still not there, you're never going to be there because I don't think
No,
that you watch.
no,
I don't think you watch any games.
I seen Bird deliver some nice touch passes, and
Yeah.
the one thing underrated about Bird, he will like speed the transition. Like I'll never see a player when after a team scores. Only I see with Bird and Magic after a team scores, they're on the go. Like they do the inbound pass and they're like 100 miles per hour. So I'll give Bird that. But he
What about in the half court? When you watch Bird in the half court, what are you seeing that's in terms of a distributor, in terms of a playmaker? What are you looking at that doesn't resonate with you?
he just
Because what
doesn't
I'm
have
looking at,
he just doesn't have the ball a lot, which is fine. But they use him as like a off ball type player. Type player. I don't usually see him self create a lot, but he's a great touch passer. Maybe if I watch some more Bird games, I can get with him as a passer. But right now,
he,
I, I,
I I think that you when you look at Bird, I think the thing that you could pay more attention to is Bird's advanced thinking, how he see the game, plays ahead, and
Yes.
like guys in position. Like for example, Bird would pop to the corner, and then the big guy, let's say that it was Greg Kite. Greg Kite would have the ball at the mid post, get the ball to Bird, and then he would dive to the rim. The defense would collapse to Bird, and
And
Bird would
Bird would
drop the
pass
ball off
it.
the Greg.
Oh
That's
yeah,
thinking ahead.
I seen Bird do that. I seen Bird do that. I seen
And
Bird
but
make.
what I mean when I say that is that's seeing the game a couple of plays ahead. He's gonna give me the ball. When he gives me the ball, this defense is immediately gonna collapse to me. He's gonna see that and he's gonna dive to the rim and he's gonna be wide open for a layup.
Okay,
That's
okay,
forward thinking right there. And that's part of being a great playmaker and a great passer.
okay.
Like I know where to put the ball at.
Maybe I'm underrating his passing. Okay, maybe I'm underrating
Yes.
his passing. But
Yes, sir.
as a playmaker, I just don't think it's close. I don't think it's close.
Now, when you
And
talk
as
about playmaking, what are you talking about when you talk about playmaking?
if you want to go to defense too, LeBron's a better playmaker on defense too.
I think Bird was a damn good defender, team
Yeah,
defender.
I'm higher on Bird. Like Low, Low. He wasn't really high on Bird as a defender,
Mhm.
but the Bird, the games I see, he's a solid defender.
Yeah.
He's a good defender. So I do think Loke should give him more credit for that.
As a team defender. And when I think about like this is what I'm talking about when I talk about a small forward and what your job
And he
entails.
was extremely smart.
And it's
Extremely
not
smart.
necessarily it's not necessarily that in this aspect, but what I care about is I care about the dirty work stuff, right? So when Robert Parrish got his hands full with Moses Malone or
Yeah, he was a good
Jamal or somebody
rebounder.
like that, I
He
gotta
was a
get in there and I gotta get on
yeah
that
yeah
glass. I gotta do that.
he was great at boxing out, and he was a
I
great
had to do that. That's part of
yes.
defense.
Yes,
That's
I
100%
yeah,
part of
yeah.
defense.
He was a great box out player. He was great. He was a good off ball player. He was a
Right.
decent shot blocker. He
Yep.
just
Yep.
and he was all right on the ball. All right. And as a
I think
scorer,
Bird was a C. On the basketball, I give Bird a C on the
yeah,
basketball. He wasn't as good as James on the basketball,
no,
but I'll give him a C, maybe a B minus, depending on who he was guarding. I
not
give him
give him
a
like
C.
a minus, B plus or A minus off the ball.
He was actually better off the ball than he was on the ball.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
That's that's what
Absolutely, absolutely.
that's what entails him being a great team defender.
Yeah.
So that's as far as I'm gonna go with that. So all right,
And
brother. Good good to
okay,
talk to
okay.
you though. I appreciate you.
Yeah.
Absolutely. What up?
Yo,
What up?
yeah. So I'm just the gap between Chamberlain and Jabbar, like where do you see that at? Like just rebounding?
I think that Chamberlain was a superior rebounder. I think Jabbar was a fantastic rebounder, but the rebounder that Chamberlain was, not just in traffic, and I'm not buying the logic that he was just bigger than everybody because I've seen plenty of
Yeah.
big guys who can't rebound. I never bought into that logic. I've seen plenty of big guys that just were just stiff when it came to rebound. I think that Chamberlain was a superior rebounder when it came to rebounding and with Jabbar. I think, and as far as protecting the rim, I think Chamberlain was fantastic as a rim protector. I think Jabbar was better. I do. I think Jabbar was better, and I think that Jabbar was more instinctive than Chamberlain was. As a bucket getter, I mean, I'll give the edge. I'll give the edge to Chamberlain, but Jabbar was right there. Right.
It's
I,
like
I
yeah,
think that I think Jabbar was right there. I think Jabbar's a top 5 scorer of all time because you can have a bunch of different things in your war chest. I got this one thing that you can't stop, and nobody can ever stop it. That's how I feel about you. That's how I feel about Jabbar. And Jabbar did it on the biggest stage against the best players, and he did it for a longer period of time.
yeah,
Great
that's true.
transition player. I think Chamberlain was a better athlete than Jabbar. I won't argue that point. I think Chamberlain was a much better athlete than Jabbar. But as a player overall, and as a 5-man, just playing just a center, I think Jabbar was better.
Okay, so those two and Russell was after those two, like Jabbar and Chamberlain, in your opinion?
In terms of the gap between those two,
Yeah, the gap, yeah.
I think there's a gap between those two. Yes. I don't think it's as large as I don't think it's as, I think it's there's a gap, but I don't think it's as large as Curry and Magic. I don't think it's as large as Jordan and Bryant. I don't think it's as large as Duncan and Malone. I don't think it's that big, but I do think that there's a gap.
All right, well, appreciate it, OG.
All right, brother. Good to talk to you. What up?
What up? How you doing,
Hey, what I tell you?
I know I tried, but the thing is,
I'm
en route. It's en route. I got it on
okay.
Amazon.
All
We
right.
waiting.
I don't want to
I
hear no
get it
more. I
next
don't want to hear
week.
no more shit out of you.
All
Okay.
right, I get
All
it
right
next
now.
week. I got you.
All right
But
now.
real quick, I just want to talk about Tim Duncan and Malone. To me, I
Mm-hmm.
feel that Tim Duncan, what a lot of people forget about his game was because of his skill set. He wasn't even used correctly by his own coach. Why do I say that? Is because a lot of the minutes was taken away from him to where you would hear George say, hey, we need a couple of the young guys to get experience. So Tim and them would have to rest when they were up. You even seen when him, Parker, all three of them, there's a clip of all three of them talking to Pop like, yo, can we play? He's like, nah, I got to let these guys play. So he misses out on minutes. He misses out on what he was able to do. And for his height, the fact that he was basic, to me, I think makes him a very good player because he was able to be the big fundamental and have a game to where he could get you 20 and 10 easy with less minutes than anybody. But if you would
I
have
never
played
held that against him, Bob. I never held
okay,
that basic thing against him ever.
okay,
There's
but
a bunch of people who did. I never held that basic thing against
okay,
him.
so then
Never.
let's actually look at Tim Duncan's game. Tim Duncan wasn't just the guy that would rebound. He was playing defense. And even on his offense, the way he was able to pull out Shaq, the way he was able to do, like a lot of people don't realize that Tim Duncan's way of attacking Shaq was the way that Rasheed Wallace did it too. Because remember, Rasheed Wallace was in the post when he was with Detroit. Then when they started telling him to come out like Tim Duncan, you see what I'm saying? Like Tim Duncan has taught so many other players how to come in and out, how to cut, how to know when to pass. He would hold the ball for a long enough time to set up the offense to where he didn't
Mm-hmm.
need to score. So for me, I think that him able to see the court at his height, being able to do the basic pass to get a quick pass to Ginobili or to Parker, screens, the way he was able to do screens, the way he was able to cut on angles, get right to the rack and do easy layups. All of that is a high basketball IQ because
Yep.
basically the game was easy for him where Malone had to be more physical. See, don't get me wrong. When you're talking about physicality, I'll give it to Malone. But when you look at the overall game, it was so easy for Tim Duncan to do what he did that I think that a lot of people don't even like his game because it was so basic. That's all I had to
Bob,
say about Tim.
Was it because of the transition from the 5 to the 4? Because I already was playing the 5 anyway, so I already had to be physical. So I already did the dirty work stuff. I was already guarding the rim. I was already rebounding at a high level. And then when I get to the NBA, I move over to the 4, and I'm playing against fours who I'm bigger than. Right, so I'm playing against fours like Weber. I'm bigger than Weber. I'm playing against Garnett, bigger than him. Malone, I'm taller than him. Antonio McDyess. So when I move over to the 4 spot, I do a lot of the stuff that you guys do, and I'm a little bit more skilled than you guys are. Plus, I'm bigger than you. I might give up a little bit of physicality because I gave up some weight to Malone. Sure, I did. Same thing with Webb. Webb might have been a little bit more physical, but that's where, to your point, the basic part came in. Fundamentally, I was just better. And I use that to my advantage. I don't think that people give. That's why I never held the basic and the fundamental thing against Duncan, because he used that to his advantage.
And you just said it. He went from 5 to 4. How many guys was dominant at 2 positions? Like, we don't even see a lot of players be that good at 2 positions, especially going from center to the 4, because the 4 is a little bit faster, not as physical, quick off the dribble, one-stop pop. He's able to cover so many. And what most people don't realize, when Duncan was on the right side, everyone had to go left. So he was forcing a lot of things into their defensive schemes and sets. That's what I'm saying is different than Karl Malone. Karl Malone was good on the offense, but when it came to switching up on the offense, pushing people certain ways, Karl Malone couldn't do that. He had to rely on Stockton. He had to see where Stockton was setting up and play off of Stockton, as where Tim would look at Parker and be like, look, I got you on this. We could do this. Like, a lot of plays was run through Tim to open up for his team, as opposed to Malone, who had to rely on the guard. So for me,
now,
I
let me
just
ask you
think,
this, Bob.
yeah.
That's a fair point. But let me ask you this: when you talk about Malone and Stockton, so I showed up a year after Stock got here, so it wasn't like I was awesome or he was awesome. So we had to develop that chemistry between us, and that pick and roll offense, right? That pick and roll offense that we had to develop that. So yes, I had to depend on him. He had to depend on me too. So we did perfect this. We 100% perfected this thing. But I feel like you're downplaying how good Tony Parker was and how much Tim relied on him too.
Oh, okay,
Because
I'll give you that. But what happened when him and David Robinson played together that first year?
what happened when David Robinson and Duncan played together that first year?
They
Well,
were
we're talking about
amazing.
Oh, they 100%, but they lost to the Jazz, and they lost to the Jazz because Duncan. I'm sorry, Duncan was early. He was young. David Robinson was just coming off that back injury. They weren't there yet.
Yep.
Malone and Stockton were already polished. We were in at that point. They were well over year 10, and they had already had down what they had. And I also want to preface the point that Malone during that time, like people don't give Malone enough credit in terms of a defender because he wasn't as versatile as KG. He could guard on the perimeter, but he wasn't as versatile as KG. I'm not going to argue that point. But I think he made up for it in the post. He had great hands, great anticipatory skills, the ability to rip guys, especially those big guys when they ran through the paint, whether they were rebounding or whether they were making a move. He had great anticipatory skills to rip guys. He was really great at that, right? Then on top of that, to my point about rebounding, Malone was one of the best rebounding bigs or best four-man that I've ever seen. And I feel like when you rebound the basketball, you stop plays. And when you got a guy that's rebounding at that rate, I mean, it's pretty difficult to continue getting plays off when you got a guy that's rebounding like that.
But didn't Duncan do well when it came to closing out on the threes, coming back to the basket and grab rebounds a lot better than Malone? Or closing out along, that's what I'm talking about. Like, so when you look at the defense, that right there creates transition where he could get it down to Ginobili, he could get it down to these guys. So for me, when you look at defense, the way that Duncan was able to cover one side of the court, whereas Malone was good, but he wasn't that dominant. But I just feel that both are really good players, but I think that Tim gets overlooked because he was light, like to say, because he didn't go heavy.
He was basic.
Yeah, he was basic.
That's why.
Like, it wasn't nothing fancy. But to me, I love that turnaround off the glass because it was just money. It was just, once you saw it hit the glass, like, and I just love the sound of every shot he made, and it was just turn, shoot. But the thing what I don't understand is, how could everyone like KD's game when you look at Tim's game, and it's the same thing to me? When you look at KD's shot, it's a basic mid-range shot that he's consistently good at, and it's very effective. So was Tim in the post. So was Tim when he comes out of when he draws out. Like, it was very fluent because it's consistently good. I'm not saying that KD isn't on the level of Tim Duncan. No, KD is the man of the shooter. He's better than Tim Duncan. But what I'm saying is the consistency of their shots are very difficult to block, and I think that's what makes Tim Duncan very good. Because if you could boost up KD,
and the fact that Duncan kept going to it, that's the difference, right? Like, Bob, I'm watching Duncan, and I'm like, I'm falling. Meanwhile, I check the box score the next day, and it says 27, 13, and 3 blocks. I'm like, hey, Nick, you better wake up. You missing the show. You missing the show. This dude is awesome.
And he could have also even played defense on guards. He wasn't like they would blow by him, but once they get by him and they try to do the layup, he over the top. Give me that.
Yeah.
I've seen him enough times rip.
Great recovery skills for Tim Duncan.
Exactly.
Awesome.
Good footwork as far as a basic player. So for me, 100%. If he got more time and more playing energy, I think Tim Duncan would be one of the greats. Just like how Shaq made his free throws. I think Shaq would have been the greatest player of all time if he was 75.
So he would have been even better. So because let's be clear about this, ladies and gentlemen. Greg Popovich is the one. Greg Popovich and Phil Jackson are the load management kings. A lot of y'all don't know that. Greg Popovich was a load managing king, no doubt about that. But good to talk to you, Bob. I know where to find you at, brother.
Go New York, go New York, go.
Yes, sir. What up?
What up, Chill? You hear me?
What's up, brother? Good to talk to you.
Yeah, good to talk to you, man. I think I'm a little bit of disagreement with the biggest gap between small forward being Larry Bird and LeBron. Because I will say this about the two. Now, there's certain things that Larry Bird does better than LeBron James, and certain things that James does better than Bird. But if you think about it, for their primes of their career, which is maybe about that 6-year peak for Bird, is probably maybe 82 to 86, or maybe 82 to maybe 88.
88.
They're basically, if you look at their kind of numbers, they're basically the same player in the sense of, I think Larry Bird is 26, 10 and 6, 10 and 7. I think LeBron is 26.
So you think Bird and James during that time are the same player? No.
They're not the same player. I think that Larry Bird doesn't have the case to be the best offensive and defensive player of his time. And I don't think that the dominance that LeBron James showed from 2012 to 2014 on both ends of the floor, I think they do outweigh them. But I don't think it's the biggest gap of positions. I think the biggest gap of positions is power forwards, because the gap between Tim Duncan and everybody else in that position is so vast that even if you go to the second best player at power forward, which I believe is Giannis, I think is Giannis at this point now in time. So if you look at Giannis's career, you have essentially a whole career between them. You have about 3 championships. Giannis does have the DPOY. They have the same amount of MVPs, but the impact on the floor is different. Tim Duncan's the greater defender, and it's easier to build around Tim Duncan because he isn't like a transition machine where you can't really play a Giannis in the half court in the same way you could with Tim Duncan. Tim Duncan can back you down, face you up. He can kind of do everything that you need from a kind of solid piece and also play and have elite rim protection. Giannis is kind of like a hybrid of a small forward and a power forward. And you can see the impact gulf between the two. So I think that's the reason why I think the gap, because even if you then go Kevin Garnett as the second best power forward, okay, Kevin Garnett necessarily didn't have the postseason success that Tim Duncan had. Maybe you could argue that was because of the team, but I also just think Tim Duncan was just a better player than Kevin Garnett. Same with Dirk, same
I
with
think so
Carmelo.
too. That's where I'm at. I think that Duncan was a better player than Kevin Garnett. I'm in the minority. I get a lot of pushback that people say to me, if Duncan was the early like Duncan did, then he'd have gotten the same thing. I don't think that Garnett at 18 years old is getting on that San Antonio Spurs team with the talent level that they had, doing what Duncan did. I just don't think that. Not only are they not I don't think that it's an idea of them not accepting them. I just think that it was a grown-up league. And an 18-year-old at that time playing on a playoff team and being arguably the best player on a playoff team at that point, which Duncan was. When Duncan shows up to that San Antonio Spurs team, he's the best player on that team from day one. Like, this didn't take 2-3 years for this to happen. From day one, he was the best player on that team. I don't think Kevin Garnett is doing that at 18 years old. No, I don't.
When Tim Duncan came into the league, you basically got a finished player. Tim Duncan spent 4 years at Wake Forest, so
yes, much more polished. Yes,
it's very rare you get that kind of player that comes in. And then with Kevin Garnett, with Kevin Garnett, he kind of makes the playoffs. I think the first time in '98. And then he gets Stephon Marbury around about, is it 2000s, 2001, 2002?
He got Marbury in '96. He got Marbury in '96.
Oh, Marbury was in that. He was in '96. So when did they first make the playoffs in the Timberwolves?
'98. You were correct, in '98.
Yeah, '98. So you kind of get that, and then obviously they have the scandal where you get Marbury and all of these players that have to kind of. So it messes. The thing with Kevin Garnett, where you feel bad for him, is that you see the impact with him championship wise, because effectively speaking, when you have Kevin Garnett in a system that allows him to be himself, you get to 3 finals in 4 years outside of his prime. So if we could take that for San Antonio, but I think the way San Antonio is, I think Kevin Garnett might be a better maybe on the ball defender than Tim Duncan, but he probably wasn't as great as a rim protector as Tim Duncan was, which in the time of the league, the way people used to kind of play is more of a valuable skill set. I think Kevin Garnett would be better than Tim Duncan now, the way that these wings play, because Kevin Garnett could definitely stay out on the wing a little bit better than Tim Duncan could. But I think
he might have been a little bit more skilled with the ball. I think he might have been a little bit more skilled with the ball as a one-on-one player, but I think that Duncan would have affected the game way differently. And I do think that he would have been better than KG. But
even today.
Yes, even today. Just from getting on the glass. Not necessarily not just getting on the glass, but just the fact that Tim had something that a lot of people don't talk about. And I think that a lot of people brush to the side. As basic as Tim was, that was his superpower. Yeah. Right. A lot of these guys, you need the bag, or you got to throw the ball between your legs, and you had a whole bunch of other things that you have to do. Duncan's superpower was this thing that you couldn't stop. I was fundamentally sound. Over the right shoulder, jump hook. Over the left shoulder, running jump hook. Up and under. He had a real basic game, and he was tactical, and he was so sound at that you couldn't guard it. Now on defense, his principles were just so much better than everybody else. He was very smart as a defender, didn't foul as much. He wasn't overly aggressive, one of the best rebounders. So I think that I think that Duncan being basic, I think that was his superpower. And I think that that's what would have excelled him ahead of everybody else.
And I think that's the same thing, because to me, I agree with you in that sense, because I think it's the same thing that affects Anthony Davis, because Kevin Garnett and Anthony Davis remind me a lot of each other in terms of how they play. And I think offensively with Kevin Garnett and Anthony Davis, they do things, from what I've seen of Kevin Garnett, what I remember, they are good offensive players. I think good is kind of the ceiling. I think what they do sometimes is bail you out in terms of how they get their offense. So Kevin Garnett was very good with the kick. He had a good jump hook going to the middle, but the certain things he would do, like fall away jumpers with the kick, which you might go to a bit more if the defense was a little bit more physical with him, the same way Anthony Davis does. So I think if you was to put Kevin Garnett on those San Antonio teams, the thing with Tim Duncan, which is hard to explain, is it's tangibly it's hard to explain Tim Duncan's impact in terms of what he did, like you said, with his fundamentals and why he's different to Kevin Garnett. Kevin Garnett, I think, is a more appealing player to actually watch in terms of how he plays defense and how he affects the game. But they're so close. But I also think that the chasm between them in terms of their careers, in terms of how they affected the game, and even the way they dominated the game for such a long time, and how Tim Duncan dominated for a lot longer than Kevin Garnett and are much older. I think that's the reason why the gap is so big. I think with all the other positions, I think, when it comes to point guard with Steph Curry and Magic, that one is so tight. I could see Steph taking over Magic in the next couple of years, to be fair. If the way
Amari,
the league
I wish I could get with you on this, Amari, but no, I can't, brother.
I don't know.
I can't get
I
with
think
you.
he's gonna overtake him. I think I think Magic Johnson's biggest impact is the fact that Magic Johnson has curated the LeBrons of this time, to kind of, be able to kind of play in the Ben Simmons of this era. But I think with Steph Curry, I think Steph Curry is so impactful. He's even had an effect on LeBron James. Even LeBron James takes more threes. Like, it's crazy to think that LeBron James was known for the first 10, 15 years of his career as a non-shooter. He couldn't impact.
Wait a minute though, Amari. I'm not going to say that even though Steph Curry did have something to do with that, I think we completely leave out the fact that he was running with another sniper who affected his game tremendously. It wasn't like it was just Curry out there. No, Klay Thompson made Curry's life a lot less difficult, way more difficult than you guys out there give him credit for. You guys talk to me, and I don't mean you specifically, Amari, but you guys out here talk to me like it was just Curry. Like Klay Thompson wasn't the sniper of his era. And there's a reason why there's a reason why they ran that offense the way that they ran it. So unfortunately, Amari, you and I agree on a lot of stuff, but the Magic Curry thing, I'm sorry, brother. I gotta go in a different direction with that one. But good to talk to you, my man. I appreciate you, no doubt. Yeah. What up?
What up, Chill?
What's up, brother?
All right, so first off, let's get to this Tim Duncan conversation real quick. All right, sure. I'm from Dallas. Tim Duncan ruined the Mavericks a few times in the playoffs, so I hated Tim Duncan growing up.
Let's be clear about one thing, though. Before you go any further, Dirk used to bust his ass.
He gave him work. He did give him work.
Dirk used to bust Tim used to bust his ass, too, but it wasn't no walk in the park when Duncan showed up there. It was not.
I don't disagree.
No,
now, this is the thing. This is the thing I think you did not say about Tim, and this goes to his cap. You don't hear people say it a lot in basketball. They say it more in football. He was poised. You never really saw Tim
shake him.
Rattled. You know what I mean?
Couldn't shake him.
Not at all. Not at all. It's the
like
same
you could
move.
do all the yapping, you could get in his face, but you just couldn't shake him.
And KG said that in his own words, right? He said he had to just stop talking to him because it wasn't gonna work, man. The dude was narrow, he was focused. But
KG had a disrespectful trash talking game.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did.
And it didn't even phase KG. I mean, it didn't even phase Duncan. It was like, all right, whatever.
Not even a little bit
over here.
Now, to get to the topic of the video,
sure.
There's two ways to look at this, in my opinion. If we look at it the eye test way, or we look at it career way, right? So if you look at career totals, I do think that the biggest gaps would be with the small forward and the center position. If we're just taking eye test into account, things get way bigger. Because if you ask me, I think Magic is significantly better than Curry when it comes to the eye test of what a point guard is. Because I tell people this all the time with Steph. Steph is like the quarterback who's great at running. I love it, but we pay you to throw the ball.
Yeah.
Right? So it doesn't matter if you're the leading rusher on my team. I need you to throw the ball. Yeah. Steph Curry is an excellent shooter. He's not.
And by the way, Brandon, and keep going. Don't forget, you got an awesome running back on the team too. By the way,
facts. You
got an awesome running back on the team. So keep going.
And I really do love Curry, and I think he is one of the top few point guards of all time. But I think people really forget that the term point guard, you're the leader of the offense, you're the table setter, and I think that people give Curry a little bit too much credit for the 3-point shooting, and they don't really take into account the fact that he really isn't the table setter on that team. Now, I don't want to take it away from him. I still think he's probably number 2 or 3 all time. All right. Now, I think that the tightest position group where it's not much gap is that power forward position. I do think Tim edges out everybody, but it's razor thin margins. Yes, I think it's you got Karl Malone, Charles Barkley, KG, Dirk, all in that mix, and I think they were all monsters. I mean, and then let's not sleep on McHale. McHale was a monster too, and I think that if you really think about it, the center and the power forward position might have the closest gaps in NBA history.
I think that gap between I don't think McHale is in that conversation with these guys in terms of being at the top of the list, but I definitely think McHale is a top 10 power forward all time. I think that there's a bigger gap at the 5 spot, and the reason why is because I feel like the 5 spot is the toughest spot to crack. Now I got three of my top 5 players all time are at the 5 spot. That's Jabbar, Chamberlain, and Russell. With that being said, these guys were so significant for what we did offensively and defensively that we couldn't really game plan and scheme for them on the offensive end because we knew what Jabbar was going to give us. They had to change the rules for Chamberlain. Bill Russell anchored defenses that were all-time great defenses. That 64 Celtic team, in terms of defense, I can make the argument that they were rival to the Detroit Pistons team in 2004. They were that good. And when Russell shows up to this Celtic team, they're a good defense. He gets on the crew, they turn into the Celtics. I mean, they turn into the Pistons. They turn into the 08 Celtics when he gets on the crew. So I think that when you're talking about a gap at a specific position at the 5 spot, I look at what Jabbar did for a longer period of time. That's why I think he stretches himself out a little bit more. I mean, we're talking about the guy who was the oldest Finals MVP. He was 38 years old. He won Finals MVP. I mean, that doesn't happen. I mean, guys don't get to that. Guys don't get to that level, especially at that age. So we were looking at Jabbar at that point like he was over.
So the same applies to the small forward position there.
Yes, it does.
Okay, I agree. I totally agree.
Does.
I totally agree. Now, one last thing before I get off with you, Chill, because I watch y'all shows every day, and I don't know why you let Mars and them get away with telling you that assists are not playmaking. I don't know what the hell they're talking about.
I fight with these dudes every day about this shit, and I feel like it's a losing battle. And it's not that I'm not articulating it well enough. It's not that I'm not selling my argument. I know what I'm talking about when I say a guy that's getting down. I know what I'm talking about when I talk about a guy getting downhill and getting other guys involved, or a guy when he's getting down here and creating gravity and dishing out to a guy for the long ball in the corner, or a guy at the elbow for a shot. That shit matters when we talk about playmaking.
Yes,
and I know I'm not losing my mind when I'm talking about this. I'm thinking to myself, these dudes got me thinking, yo, is passing playmaking? Like, wait a minute, what the hell? I'm like, no, don't let these dudes with you. Yes, it is. It always been and it always will be. Always.
Yeah, they kill me with that, dude. Because I'd be sitting over there thinking in my head, how do you splice these two things? How do you say that, he's making a lot of assists? Like they do it with John Stockton all the time. I ain't want to bring him up because I know that's a touchy subject. I think John Stockton is one of the greatest point guards of all time. And they really sleep on the fact that you don't get them assists from doing nothing.
Oh, he's just dumping the ball in him alone. No, that's not what he was doing. He wasn't doing that.
If that was the case, Derek Fisher would have way more assists because he was dumping the Shaq.
That's all he was doing, was throwing the ball in the Shaq and knocking down open shots. That's
exactly.
it.
Exactly.
That's
well,
it.
Hey, man, I love you, man. Keep it up, dog.
Absolutely, brother. Good to talk to you, no doubt. Yo,
what's good? So you ready for the debate?
What up?
Or what?
Let's do it.
So I got Steph over him because I got accolades, longevity, and impact. That's the 3 reasons why I got Curry over Kobe right there. But
what accolades does Curry have over Magic?
MVP. I mean, over Kobe. I'm about Kobe.
Oh, you mean over Kobe Bryant?
Yeah.
So he's got the 2 MVPs over Bryant's 1, right?
He was robbed the Finals MVP by Iggy, but yeah.
He was robbed the Finals MVP. Bryant's got 2 Finals MVPs to Curry's 1. Bryant's got more first-team All-Pros than Curry. Bryant's got more All-League defensive nods than Curry.
Yeah.
He averaged more points, led the league in scoring the same amount of times as Curry. I think he's got more All-Star game MVPs. He's got more All-Star nods. Where are the accolades that you're talking about?
I'm talking about. I care about that MVP. That MVP matter a lot. Unanimous MVP. Like Kobe's
Yeah.
not come close to that one. And I think longevity and I think impact. When you look at Curry's like on-off stats compared to Kobe's, it clears Kobe by like a long shot.
Well, the numbers don't. The analytics specifically don't love Kobe Bryant, and
Yeah.
that's where I have a difficult time when we talk about the advanced stats. I talk about the advanced stats too, but the advanced stats don't love Kobe Bryant. But the game does. And when I think about Bryant, like you talk about Curry's effect, you talk about Curry's effect in terms of gravity. Well, I've already mentioned this, and I can't say this enough, that when I'm running with another guy like Klay Thompson, he makes my life a lot less difficult than if I wasn't running with him. Way less difficult. Even when he came back from that ACL and that Achilles tear, teams still had to help off of, teams still wouldn't help off of him, which made Curry's life a lot
I
difficult.
mean, they're not doubling him. Like you know that in the 2018 run, Curry was doubled 40 times, and Kevin Durant was doubled twice in that 2018 run.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because with them doubling him, that opened up. There's a reason why they ran through the playoffs the way that they did, because now Kevin Durant is doing what he's doing. That's why Klay Thompson is doing what he's doing. That's why Curry was doing what he's doing. Curry may have been double teamed, but now that opens up the offense way more now that opens up the offense way more now for Klay Thompson. It opens up the offense way more now for KD. And when KD is going the way he's going, are you just telling me that, yo, we're gonna double Curry and we're just gonna eat KD's production? We're gonna lose.
Yeah,
and that's what ended up happening. They lost.
But I think that's the argument. Like Shaq was a gravity that Kobe was benefited from, and KD was benefited from Curry's gravity, because he's never won without Curry. KD has never come close to it. But
here's the difference though. Curry also benefited from KD's gravity, because KD was getting double teamed too. But the difference is KD was getting the same shots. He was getting those same shots with one guy on him. Curry was getting those same shots. He wasn't double teamed all the time. Like you said, in the finals, he was double teamed 40 times. So so he was double teamed 40 times in 2018. I think they beat them in 4 games. He was double teamed 4 times. So what's that? 40 times. What's that? 10 times a game. So what's that? Like twice a quarter? That's twice a quarter.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, KD is averaging 30 a game, and Curry, by the way. So if I'm only getting double teamed twice a quarter, meanwhile KD is getting one-on-one coverage. Curry's not double teamed every trip, which means Curry is benefiting from the gravity that KD is presenting. He is benefiting from the gravity that Klay Thompson is presenting. He's not just, even if he is getting doubled twice in a quarter, he's still benefiting from Klay Thompson being doubled. He's still benefiting from KD being on the floor, and that does help him. 100% it helps.
Yeah, but I also think that Curry, like the one thing that Curry has never done is played with another dominant big man. Like imagine Curry with Gasol or a Shaq. Like he's never played with one of those guys ever.
Well, I think that the game was different in the 2010s, right? So with the game being different in the 2010s, I can't fault Bryant for coming up in a big man era. Right? He played with Shaq, and we have guys who played with dominant big men, and with these guys playing with dominant big men, not many of them can say that they did what Bryant did playing with the dominant big man. I mean, Bryant playing with Shaq, 40-point games, not just 40-point games, being an all-league defender, being an anchor on offense, being able to close out games the way he did. He could just be a guy where we just dumping the ball in the Shaq and we just getting out the way. That's not who Bryant was. Bryant took advantage of playing with Shaq, and he didn't just do his job. He excelled at his job, just like Curry, who when Curry played in this era of playing with guys that can shoot the basketball, Curry excelled at that.
Yeah, but I'm talking about even a Gasol. Like Curry's never played with a big man even as good as Gasol before, and I feel like you gotta have one perimeter player, one inside player to actually be like an actual duo, and that actually eats everyone. Like Jamal Murray, Jokic, Kobe, Shaq. You gotta have that duo, and I don't think Curry has ever had that.
He might not have played with a guy who was as good as him in terms of him being able to get buckets, but I'd like to think that Draymond was one of the better offensive players during that time as a facilitator, as a downhill guy. Draymond wasn't much of a scorer, but I think Draymond made life a lot less difficult for Curry.
He's not a post player though, but yeah.
No, he isn't. No, but I think that the way that offense was, which was, by the way, designed for guys like Curry and designed for guys like Klay Thompson. The offense got changed where they took the ball out of Curry's hands and made him less of a ball-dominant guy and made this guy more of a guy who played off the basketball. Bryant, on the other hand, also played in the triangle offense and excelled in it, playing off the basketball with Gasol. And with him, I feel like what we're disregarding is how much more dominant Bryant was on both sides of the ball. Like, you could take Curry out of the game. A prime example would be in 2010 when Bryant wasn't shooting the basketball particularly well in Game 7 of the NBA Finals. Well, he decided to do other things. Otherwise, we're going to lose. So he goes in there and he sticks his nose in and gets 15 rebounds, even though he was 6 for 24 from the floor. They don't win that game if he doesn't do that. This doesn't happen. I feel like Curry, we've seen from time to time, if that jump shot isn't going, you could take him out of the game because he doesn't. And on top of that, he got hunted on defense. Kyrie Irving proved that plenty of times that he got hunted on defense.
2022, he got better at it. 2022, he got better. But
I think the difference with 2022, that game plan can suck. Let's call it what it really is, my man. You're gonna play drop coverage on Curry. What are you doing? Are you kidding me? You're gonna play drop coverage on Curry?
They put smart him.
Essentially, what you're telling Curry is, my man, we're gonna live with you shooting. Oh my God, who came up with this idea?
They've been smart on Curry. He's the defensive player of the year that year, and he got cooked every time.
But here's the difference. Marcus Smart wasn't fighting over screens. The plan was to play drop. Okay, I'm gonna play drop. I ain't playing drop on Curry. Hell no. No way am I playing drop on Curry. That's like saying we're gonna leave Bryant one-on-one on the wing against whoever. Just you and him. No, you can't leave him out there one-on-one. He's gonna get destroyed.
I mean, even when he watched 37-year-old Curry against the Rockets, like, look how physical they are with him, how much gravity he gets, and how effective he still was against them.
I could say the same thing about Bryant, even though Bryant was over at 36 years old.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Longevity, you got to admit. Curry has that over him.
I think the difference when I say about Curry and Bryant is I think that Bryant had a lot more. First of all, it was a much bigger toll on his body than with Curry. I mean, Curry's a shooter. Curry didn't have to play the type of game that Bryant played. Bryant was a physical two-guard. Bryant got to the rim. Bryant played in the big man era. Curry, the majority of his shots come from the outside, from the long ball line. That's where Curry plays. So I don't think that it's that difficult to preserve you when you're primarily a long ball shooter. I think more than half of Curry's shots for his career from the long ball line. Meanwhile, Bryant played in the mid-range. He played downhill. And he was elite on the defensive side of the ball, which I keep bringing up. And I keep bringing that up off the strength that wore on his body. I don't think that was the case with Curry because we had a lot of guys. I mean, Klay Thompson was an all-league defender. We had a guy to protect him. Draymond Green, an all-league defender. We got guys to protect Curry. Wiggins, we got guys to protect Curry. That wasn't the case with Bryant. He had to do all of those other things on both sides of the basketball. And I think that wore him down quicker than if Curry was doing that. If Curry was doing that, I don't think Curry would have lasted as long as he did.
Yeah, but let's not act like Curry didn't face the toughest defenses as well. Like the Rockets were good. He faced a lot of tough defenses that zone on him. So he has got hurt a lot too in his career. Curry has,
and so has Bryant. Bryant has faced a lot of tough defenses and prevailed against those tough defenses. He faced all-league guards like Doug Christie and dominated them, right? He faced all-league performers, all-league defenders like Bruce Bowen and dominated them. So, I mean, Bryant, we could say the same thing about him, that he faced tough defense. That San Antonio Spurs defense was one of the best defenses in the league. He destroyed them.
Yeah, I got a question for you. What team is better, Kobe's Gasol team or a Curry 2022 team?
I think that Laker team smokes that Warriors team.
Yeah, so that's my main point too.
Yeah, I think they smoked them.
I think having a second option is it was Wiggins basically, was second option that time.
They had a good team though. That Warriors team was a damn good team. And they had a great defense that year too though. So, all right, brother. Good to talk.
That's my opinion. But yeah, thank you, sure. All right,
absolutely. Well, that's what I think, guys. That's where I'm at with it. That's what I think. So it was good to see you guys today. Y'all know where to find me at. It's about that time for me. It was good to see you guys today. You know where to find me at. It's weeknights right here on Chilltown Hoops. If I'm not here, you can find me on the panel from 11 to 2 on the Players Choice Network on YouTube. If I'm not there, you can find me every morning, 9 a.m. on TikTok. Good Morning NBA. I do that. If I'm not there, you can find me on weeknights, either here or on the Sports Fluent Network. Me and my man Tony Tone, we do it on Tuesday nights. If you can't find me there, you can find me and my man Big Ox at 4 o'clock on Thursdays or at 12 o'clock on Saturdays. Me and my man Big Ox do it on the Players Choice Network on YouTube. So I'm not hard to find, my man. It was good to see you guys. I will see you guys soon. Until then, put on a suit, drink water, don't drink and drive. Hey, man, call your mother. When's the last time you talked to your mother? Call your mother. I will talk to you guys soon. But until then, take it light. Take it. Absolutely, man. It was good to see you guys tonight. I enjoyed this, no doubt.